while I am waiting for a quorum, I will begin with public comment. And we'll start with Jacob Miller, to be followed by Phyllis Doherty.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm an animal care technician with the City of Los Angeles for roughly 11 years. Coming to this meeting today is kind of a unique thing because it's personnel and animal welfare, and what we're going to be talking about today kind of brings the two of those together, because I think a lot of this has to do with how our general manager interacts with the staff. We've had a very long, hard battle trying to talk with our general manager to try and give her the ideas, give her the knowledge of what we need to maximize adoptions, and to try and get humane education out to the public. And through many different devices, we have been, I guess, silenced. One of the reasons why we are here today is because we don't have a general manager that will come and talk to the staff and listen to what they say. Because I guarantee if she had talked to any one of us and asked our opinion, we would have told her that it was a bad idea, a bad decision. We do, however, remain open to working with this general manager, provided that she can have an open, honest dialogue, a public dialogue with us, and try and warm relations with us. Once again, it's been a very difficult time, and that is reflected in that I'm probably one of the only staff members that showed up today because everybody is too afraid to speak up. But they're not afraid to tell me and to have me bring this to the table. I want to thank you for your time, and once again, we do look forward to working with and finding solutions to any of the problems that are going on with our department, and to once again maximize the services that we can provide to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Phyllis Doherty. I am here regarding an email that was sent out to everyone by Best Friends saying what a great leader Miss Barnett is and how she's leading their coalition to no-kill, which has not actually been exhibited. Our stats don't show it. We did not have a no-kill December, which she had to admit. And Best Friends is coming and taking very choice animals from the shelters. And this is the ad that they've been running for a very long time in the Daily News, that they are giving away a chow and a pit bull with all fees waived. Is this the way we become no-kill? Anybody can do that. If we're just going to give away animals, this particular picture has been in there for weeks. I hope this animal is still not there. But regardless, we cannot get any reports on how much licensing Best Friends has done, how many animals they have adopted out to this community, and their answer in the no-kill time was that they are transporting them. That does not help the City of Los Angeles. We need to have our animals adopted here, our spayed and neutered animals kept in our community, so we're supporting the people, and we need to be getting the licensing income. The County of Los Angeles supports itself almost on licensing income. No one is pressing for that in the council. And Best Friends promised that that would be one of the contributions they would make. So just shuffling the animals is not solving the problem for the City of Los Angeles, even if it is boosting the donations for Best Friends.
Thank you. Renee Anderson. And you're our last speaker under public comment.
Good afternoon, Renee Anderson, SEIU Local 721. I represent the animal control officers and the animal care technicians who actually do the work in the shelters. But today I am here to represent the animals who do not have a voice. And eliminating the graveyard shift is just ridiculous. First of all, as we all know, it's been said numerous times in these committee meetings, the animals do not go home.
Actually, this item is obviously our only agenda item. So do you want to speak on things other than specifically this, or do you want to wait till...
That'll be fine.
Okay, why don't I call you back up then under the item.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I was hoping to have a quorum to start, but we'll start this with just the chair. If we could have item number 1.
Item number 1, motion Corette's design relative to the Department of Animal Services elimination of the graveyard shift, midnight to 6 a.m., for all 16 animal care technicians working at the city's 6 animal shelters.
Thank you. And as you all know, today we're having a hearing on what the department has been considering an action of alleviating staff shortages and during the day and swing shifts at all 6 animal shelters by eliminating the graveyard shift. Needless to say, for a variety of reasons, this action has caused some consternation and apprehension among a number of stakeholder groups. So I introduced the motion that we're discussing today so we can all hear the department and the general manager's thinking on the issue, and to give anyone who would like us to know what their thinking is, their thoughts about the staffing change. And I'd like to thank General Manager Brenda Barnett for attending today's hearing, as well as folks on both sides of the issue. And I'd like to thank in advance Brenda for taking into account the concerns that have been expressed and will be expressed by many folks in the animal community and elsewhere, and those issues discussed in the motion. So, Brenda, I'd like to ask you to come up and give us your explanation of what you were thinking and what concerns we're trying to address.
Sure. Brenda Barnett, General Manager, Los Angeles Animal Services. So I submitted to you a report late yesterday that actually talks about the staffing challenges that led up to the recommendation. And I think we don't really have to belabor the history. It's pretty clear that back in 2005, 2006, when we had 759 animal spaces, we had 120 animal care technicians. And today, with the opening of the new South LA shelter, we have 134 animal care technicians who care for 2,029 animals. That's 1,270 more, which is a 167% increase. So our initial recommendation to redeploy the graveyard shift, not the entire graveyard shift, but from midnight until 6 a.m., was merely an effort to try to do the best we could with the human resources we have. It wasn't actually a savings economically, because we were recommending putting some guards at the shelters. However, what I would say to you, and what we have been working on since then, is that last week we had 6 ACT positions reinstated through managed hiring. Those were empty positions that we had been trying to get filled since I think about last November, December, and they were approved last week, so we will be filling those additional 6 positions. If I had to come to you today, which I am coming to you today with my very best recommendation, that is that we add 16 animal care technicians, and then we would be able to continue the graveyard shift and to properly staff our shelters. And we would still be on the thin side. When we added the new South LA shelter, we added 100 animal spaces. We also added a campus that is just huge for the staff to try to walk around. We've had animal care technicians clocking in somewhere between 9 and 13 miles when they try to do their work. And I think that's just not reasonable. So, we have been preparing, and we are preparing a list to submit to the CAO asking for 16 additional positions in our budget for next year. We would also like to work with this committee and City Council to find the resources, and we believe we have most of the resources and savings within our department to find those 16 positions for the remainder of this fiscal year as well. We have a list of 90 ACT candidates that is certified, so we have the availability of personnel to hire. We've been talking with personnel about how to expedite a hiring process, and they are willing and happy to work with us on that. So My best recommendation and what I would ask you for today is your assistance in finding the resources to hire 16 more animal care technicians. This will be the first time in many years this department has been able to add personnel to care for the animals, and it's urgently needed at this time.
Should we have opened up the South LA shelter? I mean, it sounds like that may have been what put us over the edge in terms of being unable, even at this thin level, to continue staffing adequately.
Well, we've been in budget meetings and we've been saying, if you talk about across-the-board reductions, if you talk about a 5% reduction, that equals 18 people. If you talk about a 10% reduction, that equals 30 people, and we cannot continue to operate 6 shelters with those kind of reductions. But what happens each year is if there are vacancies, then those positions are swept during the budget cycle. So that's, we're just sort of holding our own. We're treading water.
And so I take it from this that you've decided, based on what you've already heard, not to go forward with the graveyard shift change.
Well, I think we're looking at all options. I mean, we have a town hall meeting next Monday. I look forward to hearing suggestions from the community, from people on staff, to talking with the council members on this committee to see if we can get something going forward, talking with the CAO's office about asking for those additional positions. I mean, I think we're at the point that if we talk about being able to care for the animals safely and humanely, and if we talk about, taking care of our own staff, we have to do something in that, and what we have to do is add personnel to be able to meet this demand.
Richard, do you have any comments before we hear from the public? Oh, and by the way, for the record, Councilmember Alarcon has joined us.
Yeah, I'm just I'm looking at the report here, and the first thing that jumps out at me is just above where it says an equal opportunity employer. It says creating a humane LA. Are we?
I think we need more personnel to be able to be safe for the people and the animals. It's a public safety issue.
I think it's great that we have reduced the kill numbers, but I think it's just as deplorable that we're allowing animals to suffer more while they're alive in our facilities. And so I don't know what we have to do to fight for those 16 positions, but I absolutely believe we should not shut these facilities, in essence, or at least not have them supervised for 6 hours a day. So I just want to know how we're going to get through that, what motions we have to introduce, and I will work with the chair to support any effort to preserve those positions. Now, we can argue till the day is long about style and personalities and everything else, but at some point, it's not about taking numbers out of the budget. At some point, it is about whether we are maintaining a humane level of treatment for the animals that we keep. And I believe that we are getting dangerously close, if we haven't already reached, in some cases, to violating the law. And so I don't think that we should take this lightly, and I don't think we should use the cover of not having enough money when it comes to ensuring that we are caring for our animals in a humane way. It's really interesting, but there I believe is a direct correlation to what is going on in the prison system, where the federal courts have intervened and said you can't do it like that anymore, and they just had to release them. Well, we can't release them, but at some point we may have to stop picking them up, and that's not allowable either. So this is not acceptable, and whatever it takes to keep those facilities staffed 24 hours a day, we just got to do it. And I think we're talking about $1 million for your 16 positions.
Correct.
Come on, $1 million is decimating this department, where in other departments it would have very little effect. So we've got to pony up and get these positions restored. And anything else would be harmful to the animals that we are trying to create a humane society for. So
I agree, Richard. And if the numbers are actually kind of shocking when you compare staff to cages and then where we are today. It's certainly understandable that we're incredibly understaffed compared to where we were. And I agree that every department has had to take a hit, but I think this one has actually gone beyond the line of where it can function properly. And I don't think that's true for all of our departments. I think it's possible this is the one that's the most dangerously underfunded. So I think Richard and I can talk about what motion we might introduce to try and change that. Well, we can introduce something in writing. I don't know that it has to come from this committee per se, but I think we have to take some sort of an action because I think we have gone too far. I'm going to hear from members of the public, and there's enough of you that I think I'll just do 90 seconds instead of 2 minutes. And if you're in the middle of something crucial, I'll give you a few extra seconds. But let's start with Renee Anderson, be followed by Liz Greenwood.
Thank you. Again, Renee Anderson, SEIU Local 721, representing the animal care technicians and the animal control officers in the Department of Animal Services since 1999. I don't have to keep telling you, we all know that the animals do not go home. 6 hours is a very long time for those animals to be unsupervised. Animal fights happen in those shelters. We have cats and dogs who have been administered certain medications from the vets who have to be looked at to make sure that they're not going into a coma, to make sure that, they're not, whatever medications can affect the animals. The animal care technicians have to be there to make sure that nothing happened to these poor animals. Paying for security to secure the building is just horrible. We don't need security. We need a staff in there to watch these animals. Now, the staff that she talked about numbers, the amount of animal control technicians that we have on the grave shift has been doing a tremendous job. They have been making sure every kennel is clean. They have been making sure that no animal is going without whatever it needs, making sure that there's no animal fights. When the animal care technicians come in on the day shift, they come in to clean shelters where there's still food and water. Without that graveyard shift, until we finally get an okay to hire, the shelters will look horrible. I mean, you will have urine smells, you will have feces all in the cages. It will be awful. You will have dogs, cats left on the steps. You'll have dogs and cats roaming around, especially in the South LA shelter, which is close to my home, which is already bad. It would just be a mess. So we're asking that you please consider keeping this grave shift for the safety of these animals. This is not about the employees. This is about the animals, the welfare, the animals who do not have a voice. And it would just be horrible. And I'm very surprised that the heads of this department is not thinking of the welfare of these animals. So please, we ask that you guys do not eliminate this grave shift. Thank you.
Liz Greenwood, followed by Martina Steiner.
Hi, my name is Liz Greenwood, and I am a city employee, and have been a city employee for 18 years. 12 of those years I spent working out of a police department in South Los Angeles. And I can't tell you the horrific things that we have seen involving animals that happen at night. And not just the animals at the shelter, but the animals on the street. People bring them into the police station, people bring them to the shelter and drop them off. There is a desperate need for the city to respond to this tragedy as it continues to occur, and these tragedies as it continues to occur. 16 people getting redeployed? I can't imagine that we want to be the city that leaves them there in the middle of the night, whether it's there in the shelter or there on the street. I can't imagine that this is who we want to present ourselves as. I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Actually, no, you have another 30 seconds. For some reason, we're not able to do 90 seconds.
The city of Los Angeles has the ability to be spectacular and progressive, and this is I understand just as much as you guys do about the financial distress that we've been going through. Please don't let the financial distress fall anymore on this group of employees, on this group of animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Martina Steiner, followed by Tina Clark and Phyllis Doherty. And you could all come up too, so.
Hi, my name is Martina Steiner. I'm a lifelong LA resident, currently a Master of Social Work student at USC and a supporter of public employees and animal welfare. I just came today to express my concern that the plan to eliminate graveyard ACTs will put hundreds of animals at risk of illness, injury, or death. I also think it will create a health and safety risk for those employees who are coming in the morning for their shift. So I just urge the committee to reject the proposed changes to the animal services. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Clark.
Tina Clark. I want to thank you, Councilmember Koretz, and the committee for taking this up, because it's just a tragedy. I mean, I heard somebody use that word, and without her hyperbole, it is a tragedy. Animals will be dying and suffering who would not otherwise. And I just want to kind of echo what has been said before. This is a horrible idea. And interestingly, I was just thinking that, with all due respect to Ms. Barnett, the animals that die are not going to be shown up in the kill statistics, because they're all either going to be DOA or died under custody, or died not euthanized. So they won't even show up in the kill numbers, but they will be dying, they will be suffering, and she will be killing them just as sure as if she stuck the needle in herself. And I just wanted to, this is a horrible idea, and it can't possibly, it's just, I don't see how anybody with any compassion can really think this is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis Doherty, followed by Jacob Miller.
All right, Phyllis Doherty. I'm Director of Animal Issues Movement. I'm also a longtime member of CACTA, which is California Animal Control Directors Association, and SHAC, State Humane Association of California, and I'm a trained humane officer. So I do have a lot of experience in shelters. It's unfortunate that at $203,000 a year, Ms. Barnett did not work out these management issues with you and with the employees and the union, and not have had this come to this point where it's a public issue where everyone's suffering over it. Los Angeles is a 24-hour city. The way that it differs from any other shelter system is that we have the same amount of traffic, crime, issues in the streets 24 hours a day. We must have staffing for our shelters 24 hours a day. Those animals are out there, and our public safety is dependent upon the animals being picked up, brought to the shelter, and getting care 24 hours a day. If the pit bulls and the various animals that are hard to pick up continue to multiply out there, we will have a situation where it'll be a real danger to everyone, and then it's pretty hard to catch up. So I'm delighted that you're coming up and that you're going to support the hiring of more animal control technicians, animal care technicians. I also want to point out to you that none of the shelters that Ms. Barnett had listed as having nobody at night, They all have someone at night. I called them all myself. They all have either ACTs, the county, we always have an ACT, I'm on the county board, and animal control officers. So the chart that was used to get us to this point of putting off these employees was totally invalid. When you look at this, you'll see that every single one of them has ACOs going in and out, and they're in the shelter at night. So again, I want to thank you for supporting more employees. We need to keep this safe. And by the way, when Prop F passed, everyone was aware that funding for staff was not in it. That was a very important issue. And part of what they said was that they wouldn't open all of the shelters. But this has been going on and should have been planned for a long time ago.
Sure.
Phyllis,
Mr. Aller.
could I ask you a couple questions? I didn't realize you were on the county board, but the county had to go through some legal challenges relative to its care of the animals not so long ago. How did that occur? What authority took action? Was it a simple civil suit, or was it some other agency that filed against the county?
Okay, well, now I'm on the Animal Care Foundation board, so I can't speak legally for the county, but I'm familiar with what happened. It was a volunteer that complained and brought in an outside nonprofit organization that was actually wanted to make a name for itself. Doesn't mean that it's not good for everyone to be accountable. Since Bill Fujioka has been over there, we have been funded for all new spay-neuter clinics. And
I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, ours are open to the city.
I'm just asking about
that was the result.
The legal authority in terms of who filed a complaint, and
it was a volunteer.
And it was a court that did it impose an injunction or something?
No, it's just reporting. Just a better means of reporting. They actually found that the county was pretty much that the shelters were pretty much adhering to the law.
Okay.
But they wanted a more reporting done.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Miller, be followed by Bonnie Monaghan.
Jacob Miller, animal care technician for the last 11 years. Actually, I'd like to wish you a happy birthday coming up. Just noticed that on Facebook the other day. But anyways, I kind of wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what we do on the graveyard shift, because nobody really has come and given you the staff's perspective and what we see on this shift and why it's important that we keep staff on all the time. And I'm prepared to answer any questions you guys have, both here and any time in the future. Please feel free to give me a call anytime. Let me take a moment to explain to you what we, the animal care technicians, do on the graveyard shift. Over my 11 years with this department, I've spent much time on the shift, probably about a good 30% of my career. We spend the entire night cleaning up after the animals, booking in the animals that show up during these hours, usually in very desperate situations, because most people don't come to the animal shelter unless there's something serious going on between those hours. We field calls to the officers that are out in the field because they seldom remain at the shelter. They're very busy handling emergency calls, so we also have to watch the phones. We check all the rooms. We check all the kennels for animals that could be in distress. I've run across animals that have climbed up the cage, got their arm caught in the cage, and if we weren't there, that animal would have sat there till 6 o'clock and hung itself. This is something that we find from time to time. Cleaning and watching the animals is a critical function of the shift. Animals that have had recent injury and surgery need a trained eye to identify if they're in distress and should go to an emergency clinic. Without us, they could suffer for over 6 hours and die. Without us, do the continuous cleanup, animals will sit in their filth, the flies, the disease, the horrid smell. This poop will sit on the kennel floors. It will sink into the crevices, sink into the cracks, split the concrete, and make these places look really, really awful over time. We have beautiful, beautiful buildings put in by Bond F, and we want to keep them that way. But I guarantee that if we were to eliminate this shift, it would create problems. It would make these buildings look ugly. And we don't want ugly animal shelters. The reason why we do so well with adoptions is because we have lots of traffic coming through and people want to adopt. One other thing, if I may have just one more moment.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm sorry, but thank you very much for considering the 16 new positions, and I think we really do. Oh, that was what I was going to say. We are treading water right now, but the graveyard does a hard job, and we've been doing that for many, many years. And while we welcome getting new staff members in, we'll continue to work hard and we'll continue to do what we need to do to make sure the animals are cared for, regardless of what's being said at the top. The fact of the matter is that with the brand new animal shelters do have advances in kenneling techniques, in cleaning techniques, and protocols. And because of this, we're able to do more work with the staff that we have. And like I said, we do welcome getting more staff in. It's definitely going to help. It's definitely going to help speed and boost up this trend, this upward trend in adoptions, despite the upward trend in intakes. But we're treading water, and we're doing, we're going to make do. We're going to continue to improvise if we have to. But we really need to keep this shift intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Monaghan, followed by Julie Butcher.
Hi, Bonnie Monahan, dog rescuer. Thank you, Councilmember Allergan, for recognizing that there are law violations going on every day at LA Animal Services. When I volunteered at North Central, I saw abuse and neglect on a daily basis, multiple counts every day. Ms. Barnett made an obvious statement today that hiring workers would help. Of course it would. But she failed to explain any specific reason on how she came to make the decision that eliminating the overnight workers was a good idea. It's clearly not going to save any money because those workers, I believe she's planning to move to the day shift, and hiring security would wind up costing more money. Obviously, leaving the animals alone at night is very dangerous. Ms. Barnett has made a series of undefendable mistakes in her time as general manager, and she rarely has any explanation that she can give to the public as to why she's made these decisions. I believe this most recent decision is another one of those. She has put all 6 captains on paid leave over a
I'll have
small
to ask
issue.
you to stick to the issue
Okay.
at hand.
Well, obviously, I believe most of us here think that it's a very bad mistake to leave the animals unattended at night, and we're hoping that you can take action and do whatever you can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Julie Butcher, to be followed by Stephanie, whose last name I can't make out, but you probably will know who you are, from the Independent Animal Rescue.
Good afternoon. Thank you. On behalf of the union, I'd like to say this is not personal. I don't personally believe that the general manager made this decision. I believe that bean counter somewhere, again, because this is not the first time this has come up as a suggestion, looked at a list of staff and said, oh, look, we have extra people, not realizing, as has been said, that the workers can go home, but the animals can't. The last time this was suggested, the staff on off shifts has been cut, and I actually remember sitting right here talking about the tragedy of a worker pushing a panic button with no one at the other end of the panic button to respond. People have been hurt, people have been chewed up. It was a silly idea then, it's a silly idea now. The fact is that the workers refuse to abandon the animals that they're entrusted to serve. We all know, if you've raised a child or a pet, that anything that happens in the middle of the night. It's just the reality of circumstances. It's time to put all of our possible heads together, furry and otherwise, and figure out how to raise the money we need to raise. The County of Los Angeles kills 4 times as many animals as we do. They also fund their entire operation based on internal money raising, fundraising. 2 things. We need to go back to knocking on doors and getting people to license their animals like we used to. 2, we need to move the process that Phyllis has been talking about for I don't know how many years of administrative citations. Both of those programs together could entirely fund what we need to do with this department. It's critical work. The workers are ready. The union's ready. I believe management's ready. So I think this is clearly an idea that's penny wise, and I have to do the pun, pound foolish, and we can do so much better. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, I've been pushing the ACE program for almost 4 years, and I think we're actually getting close to it being heard again and moving forward. So hopefully that'll help a little bit. Stephanie Fayella. Thank you.
Hi. I'm an independent animal rescuer. I've brought homeless animals to the shelters overnight, in the middle of the night, on my way home from work, late. if nobody was there to answer the door, what would I do with those animals? I mean, I have a lot of dogs at my own house that I foster, that I rescue, that I take care of. And it's just ludicrous to me that you would even consider not having anybody answering the bell. So that's all I have to say, and I hope that you keep those. I know Don Paul at South Central, I know Tamika, I know all those people, Martha. Everybody's working very hard, and those people who work there care very much about those animals, as we all do.
Thank you. Barnett, I wonder if you come back up and answer a question or two.
Sure.
I have one. How did we get here to even propose this? What other choices did we look at? And while we will push for adequate staffing, there's obviously no guarantee the way the city's operated in the past. So what are other choices to actually have the department run appropriately?
Well, I don't think that there is a good other choice. Some of the things that we have talked about is the possibility of taking our current staff and operating 5 instead of 6 shelters, but there's no good answer as to what part of the city you would leave without a shelter at this point. I don't think that's a good solution. I think pretty much, as Ms. Butcher said, we were trying to take the bean counter approach and come up with a way that we could operate within our budget. And I couldn't agree with her more that we need to get the ACES program up and going and start generating more income. But I don't think there is a good solution, and I think we've tried to be team players, but at this point I think the animals, the safety of the animals, the safety of the staff, and the well-being of the city shelter system is at stake, and we all need to fight for those 16 positions.
Mr. Alarcon, any other questions?
Why not? Let me just say that in my history of working with the city of Los Angeles, there've been we've seen general managers who have been put in a position to acquiesce their own resources that enable them to manage their department. But at some point, there's a breaking point, and it comes back to bite us, so to speak, in the end. And we saw that with the fire department on the response time issue, when clearly there were some weaknesses in the service we were providing, and yet it was determined a year later that the method of the mathematics involved in the response time calculation was wrong, and those who observed that the system was being weakened had known all along without doing any calculations. I think the same thing is happening here, and we can't afford it to happen. We've made so much progress on the no-kill issue, and we're not there yet. But again, I say that all that progress means nothing if we are not taking care of the animals that are in our custody properly, because that's just as inhumane in many ways as euthanization. So I think that we absolutely have to fight for these positions, and I'm happy to join with the chairman to second a motion or several motions if necessary. But we have to find the resources. Now, the $1 million that you speak of, the $900 and whatever $1,000, is that to finish the year, or is that an annual budget?
No, that's an annual budget for 16 animal control officers, fully loaded.
Is there somebody from the CAO's office? Do we have a reserve fund?
Janice Cheng Yu, Office of the CAO. Are you talking about for this year or for next year, for next fiscal year?
Well, we haven't done the budget for next fiscal year, so can you just answer for this year? Do we have a reserve fund?
Do we have any funding available to? I couldn't answer for you that question at this point. We can look to see if the council wants to provide funding to the department. We can certainly look into finding funds for that.
That wasn't my question.
Yeah, Councilmember.
My question is, do we have a reserve fund at the City of Los
We
Angeles
do
right
have a
now?
reserve fund, yes.
How much is in it?
I don't have that answer.
Is it at least $1 million?
I believe it is, yes.
Is it closer to $5 million, maybe?
I couldn't answer that right now.
Can somebody answer that question for me?
It's over 200 million right now,
It's over 200 million. 200 million.
something like that.
We can't solve this problem? I don't understand that.
We can add the funding this year, but we would have to find ongoing funding for
Oh, so make it 2 million. And then we'd have 198 million in reserve. We could cover 2 years, and then we can implement the ACE program, and then I believe, heart of hearts, that the economy's improving, and hopefully next year the dilemma won't be so severe. So I think this is a ridiculous problem, and we cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering that these animals will experience if they are not watched 24 hours a day. And so whatever it takes, is there some kind of action we can take other than note and file to generate this level of activism on the council floor?
Well, I'm going to recommend that we just note and file this, and that you and I, although it's not an action of this committee, that we put forward a motion tomorrow to request the 16 ACTs
We're in.
be added to
So let's
the budget.
let's set aside. I would ask that we set aside the bickering about style and past actions and unify around this cause. And if all of us are unified on this cause, we will win. And I believe that I believe that to be absolutely true.
And so I would say without objection, we will note and file this report. And with no other business before us, we are adjourned.